Hey guys, and welcome back to Mobile Dwellings. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how much money we spent as a family of 3 traveling all around the United States for 6 months in our 40-foot school bus conversion. And wow, was it a lot of money. By the way, this video is brought to you by Skillshare, but more about Skillshare later. Now the premise is that on June 8th of 2020, when we thought that the pandemic had sort of turned the corner, and our nation was just about to reopen and recover, my wife and I left our gainful employment and we hit the road full time with our 2-year-old daughter, Nova. I can't believe this. I'm leaving my job for the last time ever. I wasn't even thinking about it till about now, and it just hit me like a bag of bricks. The goal was to travel all around the United States and especially hit up the whole West Coast, which we did, traveling from the tip of the Olympic Peninsula all the way down to San Diego and then back across the Southwest to the East Coast again. We absolutely had an incredible adventure, and while there were times that were stressful, and I certainly on occasion missed the comfort and stability of my job as a firefighter, as well as firefighting in general, I can say that we had the adventure of a lifetime, and as a result we have a renewed zest for life. But we do have some advice for you, and perhaps through sharing our experience and our finances, we can help you on your journey as well. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Now the first thing that I've got to mention to you is that we as a family, in my opinion, spend an incredible amount of money on food. We eat a pescatarian diet and we eat very well, and somehow every single month we seem to spend around $1,500 on groceries, the occasional coffee shop, frequent meals out, and often a bottle of red wine for me when I've had a stressful day of driving, fixing, and maintaining the bus. Surprisingly, our spending on food did not change significantly from when we lived in a house. Although we were dining out much less because of the pandemic, we seemed to make up for it by buying nicer groceries, more sparkling water, and kombucha. So after 6 months of full-time travel on the road, we ended up spending a whopping $9,000 on food, but no regrets there. Next up is clothing, shopping, things for Nova, and gifts for other people. We did not expect to spend this much money on consumer goods when we were on the road, but I definitely think that this is attributable to the stimulus checks that we received, and we certainly used that money to stimulate the economy. Now going into this, I did think that we would spend much less on consumer goods because our access to shipping from companies like Amazon was much more limited. But we seem to make up for it by shopping more often in big box stores and also sending things through Amazon and other online merchants to friends and family. And so during our 6 months on the road, we spent a whopping $5,057 on consumer goods. And this does not even include anything that would have been a business related expense like broken camera gear, which I was often breaking. But all in all, I do think that we would have spent less money on the road had it not been for those stimulus checks. And I think that if you hit the road full time, you will find that that is true of you as well. You will spend less money on consumer goods, even though that didn't actually happen for us. On a similar note, we also spent $250 during this period donating to causes that we cared about or people in need, mostly in the Skoolie community. Now let's talk briefly about pets. Although we did not decide to take our dog Nala with us on this trip, and we left her with Val's sister Corinne, who took great care of her, we did of course pay for her food, expenses, and vet bills. And because she's an older dog with some issues, she did have some issues come up during this time, and so on Nala we spent $900 in 6 months. Entertainment. While most of our entertainment expenses would be lumped into a later category, we do pay for Spotify. Over 6 months for Spotify, we spent $66. Now, while we do have some yearly subscriptions like Amazon and Skillshare, and we also have some business expenses, I'm not going to lump that into this category right now because those purchases just didn't happen to be made during that 6-month period. But just so you know, we do have some other monthly reoccurring subscription expenses. Next up is medical expenses. This is definitely a big one to pay attention to if you are a family traveling full-time on the road. Now, when we left our jobs with our income from YouTube and a couple of other sources, we were able to qualify for a nice subsidy through the Affordable Care Act. And we ended up picking a very cheap insurance. However, the issue with this was that we found out soon after we hit the road that insurance purchased in your own state does not actually cover anything outside of your own state. Now, it is supposed to cover emergency care in any state, but we found that with our insurer, since we picked such a bad one, we ended up having an emergency room bill that we were not actually able to get them to pay for. So we had several medical expenses that we ended up paying for completely out of pocket. We never used our insurer at all to pay for anything. Pharmacy, doctor's visits, lab work, and that would have probably been fine, and it may be totally fine for you if you have no pre-existing conditions. However, we decided during this trip, we had planned this all along, to get pregnant with our second child. And we ended up getting pregnant with our second child sort of early. And of course, when you're pregnant, you need routine medical care. And so we were jumping from doctor's office to doctor's office as we traveled through the states, paying cash for our care, which is not ideal, when you're paying for insurance. So during this 6-month period, we spent $1,542 on medical expenses. However, this does not cover several larger bills that we are paying off over time. Now, if you are a single person or a couple or a family hitting the road full time, in many states on the healthcare marketplace, there are 0 options for multi-state health insurance, which was the case for us and may be the case for you. I believe that there are private options available, but I do imagine that it's fairly expensive, and you do really need to read the fine print to make sure that you are actually paying for something that will be useful to you, unlike us. Oops. That being said, I do know that we as a family spent much less money than many people do on their medical expenses and medical care, even with those larger bills that I'm not mentioning now. And so I do think that we really have nothing to complain about, and let's move on to the next topic. If you don't build a washer and dryer into your Skoolie, you will find yourself doing your laundry at laundromats. And it turns out that this is actually a very enjoyable experience because instead of having to load your laundry from your house into your car, drive it to the laundromat, unload it from the car, put it into the laundry machines, and reverse the whole process, you can actually drive your house right to the laundromat, carry out a basket, load all your laundry into it, and put it straight into 3 or 4 machines. We actually found that we were able to do 2 weeks worth of laundry in about an hour and a half, and it was a relatively affordable and even enjoyable experience to get our laundry done so quickly. I'm a little skeptical about this because I think we spent a little bit more, but in 6 months on the road, we spent $56 on laundry. Okay, so it is now time for some bus expenses. Bus maintenance like fuel filters, repairs, coolant, as well as making improvements on the build and finishing up a couple of jobs added up to $2,069. We had some issues with our air dryer and we threw several replacement parts at this issue before finally replacing the whole air dryer with a off-brand Chinese version which didn't work. And then finally replacing the whole air dryer with a remanufactured OEM air dryer which still did not long-term fix our problem. Finally, with the help of some smarter people on online forums, we were able to figure out that our problem was actually just a $20 governor on the air compressor. And thankfully, some Skoolie friends of ours were able to pick up the part for us when we were stranded and help us install it. And in the end, it was a pretty easy process. However, we had already thrown several $100s at this problem, so that accounts for much of this expense. We also had some coolant hoses break, which is fairly easy to fix. However, you do then need to buy some more coolant if you've lost some and replace hoses, and that was a small issue for us as well that kept coming up. We did some oil changes as well, and I've got to say, all in all, we were incredibly lucky in our 6 months on the road. We never needed a tow, we never needed to pay for labor, and we never got stuck in one place for too long with no options. Bus breakdowns can be very expensive if you cannot fix them yourself, and you've got to pay for a tow and pay for shop labor. So all in all, I think we got very lucky. Our next topic is shipping. Sometimes when you're on the road, you're gonna have to ship things back home or send them to friends or family. And during our time on the road, we spent $42 on shipping. So we have a policy through Allstate. It covers damages to other people, damages to other property, damage to our bus, and it also should cover us if there were ever anything catastrophic in here like a fire. In addition to that, we do buy the top tier of Good Sam Towing and Recovery. And so for 1 year of both of those products, we spend $1,642 on insurance. But the cool thing is we don't have to pay for any insurance for our home in addition to that, or for a car. So I think that ends up being a net positive. Val's phone plan costs $280 for 6 months. We are lucky enough to have Xfinity Mobile, which has a $45 20 gigabyte plan. Now I happen to have a special phone plan that I got from being a first responder, and so that's not really replicable for you. And so I'm not going to include it in this, but if you were to have a cell phone plan and also a great mobile hotspot, you would have to probably spend another $900 on those two things. Mobile hotspots, especially a good one, can be quite expensive. And this video is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for anybody in need of structured learning that is also fun and engaging. When I need to learn a new creative process, I turn to Skillshare, where there are thousands of online classes in topics that are important to me, like videography, video editing, photography, and Photoshop, with more being uploaded daily, with no advertisements and no distractions. Given my interest, there is one major bonus to using this platform, and that is that it provides me with a behind-the-scenes look at many inspiring YouTubers that I look up to, like Dan Mace, who created a class about how to tell your stories through video. In this class, I got massive insights into how Dan plans and executes his videos, and I also learned about several critical elements of storytelling, which I try and incorporate into each of my videos. There are also classes by Sorella Moore, MKBHD, and I'm currently taking one about video editing for YouTube, YouTube with a creator that I just discovered named Ali Abdal. Turns out he makes incredible YouTube videos as well. Skillshare is offering a free trial of their premium membership to the first 1,000 of my subscribers who click on the link below and check it out. If you end up enjoying their product as much as I have, you can save 30% by buying a year-long subscription. I do think that this is a fantastic value for many of you, and I encourage you to go check it out. So our big 40-foot school bus has an all-mechanical Detroit diesel 6V92 engine. It gets about 6 to 7-ish miles per gallon, which is not a lot. Going into this, we of course knew that this was going to be a large expense, and we actually got lucky because during the pandemic, with so much less activity and moving around, fuel costs were quite lower than they usually are. We drove almost 12,000 miles during our 6 months on the road, and so our fuel and oil costs added up to $4,546. Sort of not that bad when you consider that we visited so many places and got to sleep in our own home. But of course, that's a major expense. Now on travel expenses like campgrounds, entertainment, and admissions, we actually spent a pretty decent chunk of change. I was actually expecting to spend significantly less than we did, and we did also spend many nights in locations that were completely free. When we were not staying somewhere that was free, we were generally staying in national and state campgrounds, as well as the occasional RV park when we needed a break. Staying in these national and state campgrounds was definitely worth it. It provides you the best access to visiting those parks, and we spent a lot of money and some more time exploring these places. This was all definitely money well spent. When we were not staying in campgrounds, we were stealth camping in large cities near friends' houses like Denver, Portland, Seattle, LA, and San Diego. We also stayed in pullouts, rest areas, random strange locations that I came up with, as well as free BLM land in the Southwest. We also heavily utilized our Harvest Host subscription and stayed in wineries and farms. And while you stay there for free, you generally spend some money on the goods and services provided to you by that small business. All in all, we had a fantastic time. We got one knock from the police who just asked us to be gone by the morning. And we also got one sort of expensive parking ticket, $116 in San Diego. Oops. All in all, in 6 months of travel for parking, camping, entertainment, and other miscellaneous expenses, we spent $4,123. That was actually money very well spent. In order to get mail on the road, we pay for a $35 a month virtual mailbox. Our mail gets forwarded from our home address to that virtual mailbox, which is somewhere in Nevada. They take a picture of our mail, email it to us, and then we can tell them if we want them to open it and scan it, shred it, or ship it to us. All in all, 6 months, $210. I do think that if we had chosen to travel for another 6 months, we would have gotten more into our groove. We were enjoying staying in free locations more, and our consumer spending was definitely going down. For another 6 months, we probably also would have chosen a slower pace of travel, which would have meant less fuel, less expenses. You can definitely do this cheaper if you do it in a different way than we did. But we went very fast. We wanted to see a lot of the country fast. All in all, in 6 months, we spent just a hair over $30,000 for our family of 3. However, as a contrast, we spent the next 3 months parked in our friend's backyard, paying just $400 a month for rent and utilities and internet, helping them do their own bus conversion. And then we spent the next 3 months living with my family in Philadelphia in preparation for the birth of our newborn daughter, River, who is, I'm happy to say, an extremely healthy and happy baby. And mommy and daddy and Nova and River are all doing extremely well. And so the second half of the year ended up being quite a bit less expensive for us than the first. In our experience, full-time travel in a Skoolie, especially fast pace with a family, might not actually be any cheaper than renting an apartment or paying down a mortgage and maintaining and improving your home. Your spending will likely go from rent to fuel and campgrounds, and you'll spend less on shopping, but you might spend more on adventures and experiences. But the magic of a mobile dwelling is that you don't need to travel anywhere if you don't want to, or you don't need to. And in fact, we have toured several Skoolie conversions with families or young couples who do not travel, and they save money on rent by renting a piece of land and living stationary in their bus. If you do it that way, living in a mobile dwelling could be much less expensive than living a conventional lifestyle. You can just stay where you are, you can escape natural disasters if you need to, you can drive once from the north to the south and then vice versa in search of great weather, or you can live full-time on the road and have an incredible adventure. Of course, the best thing that it does for us is it allows us to spend maximum time together as a family and live our lives for the fullest. It's not a solution for forever, but for us, for now, it's going really well. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please hit that like button if you got some value from it. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more, and do check out that free trial of Skillshare in the links below if that's something that you're into. And we will see you out there. Peace.